Good morning and welcome back to the Up Zone, where understanding politics is made simple. We are your two hosts, Mr. Elmer Floyd, former North Carolina House Representative for the 43rd District, and myself, former City Council Representative for the 3rd District in the city of Fayetteville, North Carolina. We are ecstatic, of course, to be back with you. Looking forward to being able to share lots of great information. But before we get started, Mr. Floyd, how goes all, sir?
So far, so good. So good so far, Tisha. And I think I'm going to have a problem going forward because the weather is clearing up and the line will be more accessible to my creditors. So I don't know, Tish. I really
Mr.
don't
Floyd,
know.
I'm so glad to see. When I started seeing little green grass springing out in my backyard, I just got excited.
Well, I continue to pray for you on that end, but I hope that the line stay a little bit cloudy so my friends won't call me a lot.
No, we all know better. You can't fool nobody that watched this show. We all know better.
Well, I just hope that it continue, that the weather continue to be mild, so they won't place all the calls.
Absolutely. What announcements do you have for our audience today, sir?
Well, just very briefly, Fairfield State did well in the CIAA, and they was invited to Division Two play. The girls lost the first round, and the boys won. The men's won the uh, first round, but they lost the second round in the tournament. But I just want to give kudos for that. The and also Gilbert Bay is coming now to WFNC 640 there. But we talked last week that he may run for county board of commissioners, so I don't know how that would have an effect there.
So do you think that
And
him being at WFNC might be a strategic move to increase his reach and expand his name recognition?
well, I
Or do you
teach
think
you know
I
I
see
look
I just thought about it as a good fit because Goldie is truly ready to retire and they need somebody with some experience and some relationships in that seat. What do you
well
think
that's
it might
that's
be?
well that's true too, and you got to look at whether or not he's still, because he has announced that he planned on running for the county board of commission.
Okay.
And you look at the salary between the county board of commissioners and what this salary would pay, and the number of meetings that the county board of commissioner has versus the salary, you might want to, well, let me stay in broadcasting than to be a county board of commission. There's
The
a
county
difference
commissioners
in,
make what, about 30?
somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 plus travel.
Okay.
Plus their travel, their budget. So, and then with all the meetings you had to attend. So you had to you know, you, you weigh that, so I just leave it at that. But it is, if he opt to do that, then it will give him a lot of publicity going into the filing period, which is in December
Mhm.
of this year. And as you know, the city council is going to file this year also, and the county board of commissioners. Those two races are going to be on the ballot. But I hope that the council will have enough gumption to move their election to the presidential election, which you have a greater voter turnout. But I
You'll
doubt
have
it.
them,
But if
and it'll cost us less because we won't be putting on two
yeah,
elections.
but I doubt very sure they do that. And the NAACP is going to have their board meeting this Sunday. Well, they're going to have it the 23rd of this month, and so that's something that if the public want to attend, and if I may say, I attended Reverend Brinkley retirement, beautiful service, and I like the recognition that the church provided to him as his exit, and that was a great reward, a monetary reward that they provided to him for his 40 years of services. So, with that, and oh yeah, and the post office too. This morning at 11 o'clock is going to have a rally at the main post office on Green Street
Okay.
as it relates to their cut. So, those are basically the announcement that we have for the public. So if you wish to attend that rally, it's at 11 o'clock or any other program. And I thought you mentioned that the county was looking at housing
You mentioned that.
affordable. Okay. Well, the county is looking at if you have some recommendation about how to provide affordable housing, they want your input on there. And that's
Absolutely. Now I
basically
can
what
give,
I
I
can
can
say.
provide information on that. I did pull the information. Hang on just a second. I'm gonna pull it up.
Okay.
Let me take a look. Mr. Floyd, now while I'm doing that, let me say I want to remind you and our audience, we are aware of the feedback. We are not engineers, we are podcast hosts. And so until we figure out the issue with the feedback, I'm just muting back and forth. So when you see Mr. Floyd start talking and you can't hear him, or you see me start talking and you can't hear me, that is why. But in terms of the county and their event, that is going to be, we'll get to that in a second. We'll come back around to that. I want to mention, hold on, Floyd, let me unmute you. Go ahead.
It's 2 days that it's going to be, both of them at the same time, but two different daytime.
I have it on our sheet for me to mention when we come around to the county news. But in the meantime, I
Okay.
did want to make an announcement because I noticed that one of the questions that I asked, I think either a week or so ago, about follow up with the Dogwood Festival lawsuit that we had heard about has finally been answered. And the answer is that that defamation lawsuit between the two directors, Malia Allen and Kerry King, has been wrapped up. It was a trial, and King's attorney Jonathan Strange requested a judgment, a nominal judgment, acknowledging that there was minimal harm to King's reputation, and so King has been awarded a $100 judgment, and now the judge is considering whether or not to have Malia Allen pay King's legal fees. So that has been resolved, and that's what it is. So
Let me ask you a question then. Was that a jury trial?
I'm pretty sure it was Mr. Floyd.
And that was a 12
A
members
jury
of
of
the
12
community
members.
of our peers made that decision.
Yes, sir.
And I do believe that the jury makes $12 per day
For the first four
and
days.
12,
Yes, sir.
and that's $144.
$144 a day.
Okay.
Yes,
Now
sir.
the taxpayer paid that, and many people at McDonald's say, "Let me pay you the $12 so I can continue to work."
So I can go on back to work. Well, yeah, in light of that, Mr. Floyd, that is accurate. In light of that, I also
Listen,
want to, I know,
I'm just
I
saying,
know.
I'd rather pay you $12 so I continue to work at my McDonald's job. I mean, and then award $100. Okay,
Look, okay.
I'm just
Mr.
saying. I
Floyd,
mean, think about it.
yeah, I also want to make note of the fact that there's a road closure that's going to be happening on Rayford Road. So if you happen to journey down by the end of Rayford Road, that's near Highland Country Club, just know that there's an 8 month shutdown coming. So find an alternate route if you happen to be going that direction. Mr. Floyd,
Yes.
Police Advisory Board under fire.
Well, I think they are saying that they in the NCAA tournament. There, when you see the cheerleaders, rooting for their home team, there, that's what they said that they have become a cheerleader. But when you look at what the board was actually set up to do, even in that capacity, it was difficult. You had to look at the word advisory, and they did not provide that function. And many other boards across the state have not provided that function in the advisory capacity. Two of the members, as you know, said that they became the NCAA tournament cheerleaders.
Yeah, so the Fayetteville Police Advisory Board was established in August of 2021. If anybody remembers at this time, I kept advising our Fayetteville City Council that this was not what the people were asking for. This was not because we were getting reports back. This is not what the people were asking for. It is facing criticism from former members who allege that it functions more as a supporter of the police department. So, like you said, at NCAA tournament, those cheerleaders rather than an impartial advisory entity. The board's primary role is to review and recommend improvements to police department practices, policies, and advising city council, police chief, and city manager. What the people were asking for at that time, both here and across our state, was for them to have the ability to recommend punishments when they felt that violations occurred. That is not what they were given. Mr. Floyd, you and I are both aware that this only transpires in the event that there's a change at the state level with with the law in terms of how this can be be handled. And we continue to, well, I'll say I continue to assert that unless we pushed on our legislators at that time to make some changes, we would never be able to give the people what they wanted. Now, Mr. Floyd, what is making that, and Floyd, we didn't even see the council make this request currently of their delegation when they met with their delegation to continue to ask them to review this policy at a state level so that changes could be made, which is an indicator that this was just an appeasement all along. It was never a real effort to give the community what they were asking for.
Well, when you look at it, if you want to do what the community asked to do, it would require some statutory legislation in order to do that. And if you look at the General Assembly and its members and the law enforcement groups across this state, which is the strongest one is the Police Benevolent Association, the Sheriff Association, that will be something very difficult to get out of this General Assembly to provide access to people files and other things that related to what the community wanted there. But even at that level, it was supposed to advise, and even at that level, it did not. It has not provided that function.
And the reality of this situation, and I know this may sound crass when I say it, but it's the reality. The vast majority of citizens do not have the wherewithal or the institutional knowledge to be able to understand and make those types of recommendations. Mr. Floyd, understanding how law enforcement works does not just require you to be able to look and see if you feel something is right or wrong. You have to understand the nuances that govern how these people do their jobs. And if you don't know that, you're not equipped to be able to operate in that capacity. And so I think that's the biggest obstacle that the community faces because the people who have that institutional knowledge are typically prior law enforcement. And the people have already indicated that they feel like there's a bias there. So unless you're willing to go through some training and go through some coursework, you really don't qualify. And that's not a dig or a diss, but you just that's like being able to determine malpractice for the medical community if you have no understanding of how they execute the functions of their job. So, Mr. Floyd, do you think that the General Assembly is making the right decision in not following suit and just kind of saying give them what they want?
I doubt very seriously that, given our environment today, that's is possible.
Do you think
Let's
it's
just be.
prudent? Do you think it's prudent? Not just that it's possible. Do you think it's prudent to put the power in the hands of the citizenry to make decisions on whether or not the police department is executing the functions of their job effectively?
I think that if you do it for an advisory, you know, that's one thing. But to give them authority, unless they have the board members, on that committee with the expertise
With the
to
expertise?
do, yeah, I
Absolutely.
think that would be very. I think that it would be more harm than
Do more harm
than
than
good.
good. Absolutely. And Mr. Floyd, we talk about this often about the fact that our community, and not just our community, but around the nation, we are hemorrhaging law enforcement agents. So we're hemorrhaging police officers, we're hemorrhaging sheriff. We have these, we're seeing great numbers of vacancies in these agencies. And we have to acknowledge that a lot of that is due in large part to the reception that these agents are receiving when they're executing the functions of their job. So it's like
Well,
protect me, but protect the criminal too. And we do want the criminal's rights to be protected, but there are certain rights that you give up when you break the law. If you are holding a gun at somebody, you lose the right for me to consider your life over mine. If we are in there's just so many instances where in the blink of an eye something can go completely different than what is expected.
what is you're right, and a lot of that. If I can just fast forward and come back, because there's a lot, there's statutes, there's laws
Mhm.
now in the General Assembly that would allow you a easier way to carry concealed weapons. There, which when you get out of the car, and if you're right-handed, and you get out the car, and the police see that you have a gun, they don't know whether or not you're going to use that gun or not. Even me as an African American male, I wear my cell phone on my right hand side.
Mhm.
Okay. And it looks like a holster, but I do that because it's easier for me than to put it in my pocket, which is worse. If I go in my pocket and pull it out,
Reaching in your pockets. Mhm.
boom, they would. So even a cell phone will give you the it would appear at which, given that time, that's what the officer is looking at, what appeared to him or her at
Right.
that time.
You know,
So
Floyd, we went to and after things went the way that they went with the George Floyd case. The council faced a lot of criticism about the policies of our police department. And we went to a training at the police station at their training facility where we were put in a room with a virtual reality model. And I'm sure I've told this before, but I'll share it again. We were placed in a room with a virtual reality model and we were given scenarios, and these scenarios unfolded on this model. And we had to decide when to pull our weapon, when to try and talk a suspect down. Like we had to make these decisions on the fly. Most of us that participated in this got killed because we did not understand that in a split second it can go left. The only council member who executed effectively as a police officer the duties that were before him and made split second decisions was council member Chris Davis. He was the only council member who diffused the situation effectively and handled it the way that it needed to be handled, causing no casualty. Mr. Floyd, we all left there with a completely different understanding of what in the heat of the moment looks like. And he's military trained. So for him, he had the training. But the rest of us, and that's why I say we didn't have, and I was a decision maker who had all of the information in front of me and still didn't have the capacity to be able to know when to pull my weapon and when not to.
well, let me say this, Chief. You will never hear me in the community in which I live in. I can't speak of that well community in which you live in.
Right.
I never, I will never say defund the
Never.
police,
And Mr. Floyd,
because
to your, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I'm just saying my neighborhood, I need them to patrol
Show
the
up.
street on a super regular basis.
Show up. And Mr. Floyd, I'll say this, even when you talk about the concealed carry permits, after going through that process, I went through the concealed carry process because I recognized that understanding the law is crucially important. And so I would recommend that even as these laws change, that any citizen who's even considering carrying a weapon take that class. Because to your credit, when you take that class, they tell you that you are required, whether you are carrying your weapon or not, you are required to notify law enforcement that you are carrying concealed when they approach your vehicle. So you automatically give them the heads up, but you don't know that if you've not taken that class and you bypass that step. So, Mr. Floyd, I'm a huge proponent for gun rights. I'm also a huge proponent for being educated about how to carry and utilize a weapon. And after serving on council for for a little over 4 years, I'm a huge proponent of individuals respecting the fact that these people who have been trained to protect and serve for the vast majority of these instances know what they're doing. They know what they're doing.
Again, again, Tish, you will never hear me on that protest line and say defund the police. I live in a 301 zip code. Okay. That's the zip code that I live in. And the funniest thing, Tish, if I may, there was a protest downtown that said that the person had a system that was 30 feet, going beyond 30 feet. That's one thing.
Sound system,
Now,
you
when
mean?
yes,
Okay.
now when my alarm goes off 3 times, I'm charged an assessment fee. Okay. But the person in the community can play music as loud as he or she wants to until night. Okay. Until 10 o'clock at night. So when you look at these various and the police come and tell that person to tone down his music so when that people in the neighborhood can rest and those who are working at home can perform their duties and responsibility. So, that's not an emergency call, but it's something that that community person wants a response so when that he or she can have can rest in peace because
Absolutely.
if not, if not, it allow that community to be open 24/7.
It's very disruptive. It's very disruptive and it draws the wrong crowd. Mr. Floyd, speaking of disruptive and drawing the wrong crowd, it would appear that $80 million in PwC's infrastructure funds are frozen based upon recent
I
I'm
know
trying
what
to
you're saying. I
okay.
mean, there's a lot of this that has happened, across the country about agency organizations, nonprofit organization, DEI programs, and many other programs that are losing funding. And so when
But I
the
have a
dedicated,
feeling, Floyd, I have a feeling that we're not going to lose that funding. Do you want me to tell you why I think that?
please,
Okay. So, I know that people tend to think that government is not retaliatory. However, Mr. Floyd, I think that both you and I have learned firsthand that government is extremely retaliatory and that even good leaders can be a little bit petty sometimes. I think that the fact that, and also I think that we've also learned that relationships matter. Okay. And so I think that as we're going forward with this conversation, so let me give some background so that people understand. Fayetteville PwC is currently facing significant challenges due to a federal funding freeze initiated by the Trump administration. The freeze has placed approximately $87.4 million earmarked for critical infrastructure projects in limbo, affecting the commission's ability to proceed with planned improvements. So we're talking about the PFAS infiltration system, water and sewer infrastructure upgrades, and also a component that works with FTCC for some education initiatives. Now, there's an assessment going on in regards to federal spending on various infrastructure and environmental projects. I think that what we're seeing is projects that are considered as an example, the clean energy project with Fayetteville Tech that might be canceled. But I think when we look at the PFAS and the filtration systems, I think that we'll see that move forward for two reasons and two reasons alone. I think, first of all, and this is not the two reasons, but I think, first of all, they're excellent projects that should be moved forward because people need clean water. I think that Flint, Michigan is an example of, of failure on behalf of both parties, both the Democrat Party and the Republican Party, to deliver for the people because Flint still does not have clean drinking water. And they should. They are not a third world country, they are part of the United States of America. But the two reasons that I believe we're going to see us get the money for the PFAS filtration systems and for the improved infrastructure is because, first of all, we are our our state um, went for Trump. Our state was red. The second reason is because our elected officials at a national level have a relationship with the Trump administration. Why are you making that face, Mr. Floyd? People that's listening to us on their radio cannot see your face, but why are you making that this look of incredulous disbelief at what I'm saying?
I'm just listening. You told me to listen. I'm just listening.
But if you think about like a Richard Hudson, he's not new to Washington D.C. Richard Hudson has been in Washington D.C. Tom Tillis is still up there, right?
Yes.
Tom Tillis is not new to Washington, D.C. He's been up there. So these are established politicians who have a relationship with the Trump administration, who have a history of advocating for our community in regards to the things in response to this. So I'm just thinking that those two, I think that those batches of funding, I think they'll be released. I do. I don't think we should get our panties in a bunch just yet.
The only hope is to have your hand crossed and see whether or not those funding have already been pre-approved.
Well, but what do you always say, Mr. Floyd? It's always about the art of what?
Negotiation. Okay, it's the
And the
art about
person who
negotiation.
has the relationship is in the best position to negotiate. I think this is a very good example of why who you elect matters.
Now, remember, now we said earlier that there is a protest at the post office today,
Yeah.
and that is
I
related
would
to
implore you to
cuts.
ride by there, take a picture so we can put it up on our podcast next week.
Well, well, you know,
I'm just
it's
saying.
I I know there. So when you look at what is happening across the board, and the way the courts are deciding out there, keep your hand crossed as it relates to the funding. And secondly,
And also be
Madam
prayerful. If you
Wanda,
pray, pray about this because the Lord can
to-
can turn the president's heart if he so sees fit. Go ahead, Floyd.
and keep your thoughts there. Now we're already receiving this year and next year. I think it's a 4% increase in water and sewer,
Oh yeah,
and
they
and
already said if we don't get this money, rates go up.
rates go up. So what the government, I mean, what federal government is doing now today is passing down a lot of funding that the federal government has been doing to the local governmental agencies. All right, so that they could balance their budget. Education is the same thing by disbanding the Department of Education, which the state constitution indicated that that's the state, one of the state responsibility is provide. I'm going to use the word sound based education for all of its youth there. So it's a. I hope that PWC will get that get that money because 8% in the next 2 years there, and the county on top of that, Madam Waddell, is looking at how they're going to do this evaluation. And Madam Waddell, again, the city need $12 million that they got to make up. So I don't know. I'm hoping that they get it
I
because
really
that's three
appreciate. Yeah, me too. Me too. I'm prayerful that they'll get it because otherwise it will impact us in
three
this community.
three three tax increases, which three increases in fees that we'll see within the next year or so.
Right. Now, Mr. Floyd, I want to go back to now what you had brought up because now I'm ready. My mind is right. So, Cumberland County Community Development is inviting residents to participate in virtual public hearings to gather input for the 5-year consolidated plan and the annual action plan. These plans outline community needs and strategies focusing on areas such as affordable housing, infrastructure, economic development, and services needed for special populations. The public hearing dates are Tuesday, March the 25th, and Wednesday, March the 26th. Session times are from 8 to 9 a.m., from 10 to 11 a.m., from 1 to 2 p.m., and from 3 to 4 p.m. on both days. For virtual sessions, you are that virtual sessions are available. They will be accessible on GoToWebinar, and all you have to do to participate is to register for any of the sessions through a link that is provided on the county's website. You can also call 910-323-6112 for additional information, or email cccdinfo@cumberlandcountync.gov. That's Charlie, 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 Delta, India, November, Foxtrot, Oscar at cumberlandcountync.gov. This is your opportunity to contribute your ideas, give feedback on enhancing affordable housing and other community development initiatives. And what they say is that the input that's gathered will play a crucial role in shaping strategies and goals for the community over the next 5 years. Okay, Mr. Floyd, what are your thoughts?
Uh, you said a virtual meeting?
They have virtual sessions available.
Okay, but it's not totally virtual then.
Oh,
I'm
I'm not
saying.
sure. Let me check because I didn't see a location in my notes.
I just wanted to know, did we read the same one?
Did you see any in-person
No, ma'am.
locations?
No, no, ma'am. So I would just want to know what we. So I mean, everything that people think that. I mean, if you virtual meetings are good, but when you have 100 people that want to talk, it's difficult.
Yeah.
It
And
is
virtual
truly
meetings are
difficult.
also inaccessible to people who don't understand the technology curve.
That is true, but it's good
They don't want y'all's
again.
opinion. If you don't understand the technology curve, they don't really want to hear what you got to say.
It's
I'm
good to say
kidding.
that
I'm
what
not
you
speaking for Cumberland County, but that would be the optics of the situation. But I'm not speaking for the county. I love the county. Y'all rock.
but it's saying that we will make it, accessible. It's just like when we went to virtual learning for our school kids, and many of them didn't have the whereabout to communicate with the
Or a
system.
parent
Many
to
of them
stay at
didn't.
home and stay on top of them and make sure that they were actually doing their schoolwork. Yeah.
So,
I think it's just six of one and half a dozen of another because it does expand your reach when you have a virtual meeting. But there should be some elements of going out into the community where the people are. Don't expect for them to always come to you. Go out to where they are. The same how you go out to churches when you campaign, the same way how you have events out in the community. Make sure that you're going out into the community where the people are to get their feedback. But absolutely, I think it's critical that we still have the responsibility to participate regardless of what the mechanism is, because if you don't get make your position heard, you can't later come back once that plan is in place and say I want to change something.
well, I can recall at one point when Commissioner Adams was chairman of the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners. He indicated that the county was looking at building 48 units in the place on Murchison Road at Savoy, not Savoy Heights, but the place that I've always tried to get annexed into the
Uh-huh, Shaw Heights.
Heights. That they was going to build 48 units in that area, which is in the county, which is a donut hole. Uh, I like to offer that suggestion to continue to move forward. But
You
after
got
he
to get
made up,
online to make that suggestion, Mr. Floyd, because I don't know if they watch our podcast.
oh, okay then. Let me let me go back and pull that link up and see can I make that
And what
suggestion.
I'll do is I'm going to make sure that I post the contact information on our Facebook page for our viewers and our listeners so that they can just slide right on over there if they want to go ahead and take care of that. But most certainly y'all speak up and say something because we give you this information again. Our whole objective is to make understanding politics simple. So when we give you information, engage with it because this is how you begin to understand how the process plays out, because this is the first step. And then in 3 years, when you start seeing them lobby for money from you, they're going to say, well, this is what the community said they wanted. And so now we need to execute this because the community said they want it. But if you in the community don't go and speak up, then the 15 people who always speak up are going to be shaping the trajectory of our community. And you just going to be paying for it. So because you have to pay for it, you might as well speak up and say what you want to see happen.
Let me ask you a question, Tish. You're a little bit more technical than I am.
I don't know because I can't get rid of the feedback in there. I don't know.
So I'm using a computer that I can purchase. That's dollar value, not name, but someone that I can let my neighbor know across the street
You're gonna
that.
spend about $200 on a computer,
Okay, then I'm gonna let my
and that's
neighbor.
an inexpensive computer.
Well, I'm gonna let my neighbor across the street know that does not have a computer.
But you
That
can also go to the now. In all fairness, Cumberland County does have libraries that grant you free access to computers.
you're right. You're right. But then now you're asking me to look at $2.47 for a gallon of regular gas to drive to the library
Well,
to
there's a cost. There's a cost for participation. Everything they're not going to come to your door. Now, I've always thought it was a great idea to have canvassers go around door to door, just the same way how we do when we are running campaigns. I think it's so smart to have a canvasser go door to door with a survey with this kind of information and gather the information. Like, to me, that's genius because then you really get a broad scope of, and you can even, if you want to do it like how we do it, get the voter list and just go talk to them
teach. I
or
have
send out your elected official. Like, I never understood, Mr. Floyd, why elected officials didn't still have to have a ground game after they got elected. Because that should be the whole, like the city staff or the county staff should be able to say, here's your list. Go and make contact with these people and get their feedback. And the elected officials should gladly do that.
have you seen the number of doorbell cameras, teach? If I may.
Absolutely.
So when I look at my doorbell camera that I have on my cell phone, this is another area of technology now. I can get that doorbell camera, and I think that you're a very nice person. But when I look at my doorbell camera,
If Glenn Adams knocked on 90% of the people's doors in his district, they would answer just because it's Glenn Adams. When I went around, because I what I'm preaching, I practiced. When we had big things going on and I went around door to door, people opened their, I'm not talking about during the campaign. Now, during the campaign, I had to convince people to come out and talk to me when I
you
first ran. I had to hope I caught them outside. But once I got into that office and people began to know who I was, when I came in the neighborhood, before I even got to the door, sometimes people were opening their door because the hotlines ring. Tisha's in the neighborhood, Councilmember Waddell's in the neighborhood. So before I'd even get to the door, they would be ready to receive me. People are eager to see and interface with their local elected officials. We get lazy and busy when we get in office and we stop showing up. And we feel like all we got to do is go to events and that's enough, but we still need to
come
go to doors.
on, Tish. In this community, it doesn't matter if I like you, whether or not you show up, not show up. We
I'm going to
vote.
vote for you.
We're gonna vote for you, whether or not you deliver anything. We
Yeah.
just like you, and we are convinced by your ability to use King English that we are going to support. Not you don't have to deliver it. That's not
You
even
just need to be
important.
able to say you can. Well,
You
Mr.
know,
Floyd, speaking of delivering, now speaking of delivering, Governor Stein's 2025-2027 budget proposal has been released. Let's see what we can expect to be delivered. So Governor Josh Stein, it's so interesting saying that right now, unveiled his 2025-2027 budget proposal, emphasizing investments in education, workforce development, healthcare, and public safety to strengthen North Carolina's future. He is highlighting in his proposal the following. As far as education, he wants to increase starting teacher salaries to the highest in the Southeast. He wants to provide an average of 10.6% raise for existing teachers over the biennium, restore master degree salary supplements, allocate $4 billion dollars for modernizing outdated school facilities. Now, if he can deliver on that, there's going to be a whole lot of happy people. For
can I
workforce,
teach?
sure, go ahead.
Just let me stop you right there. A $4 billion. Cumberland County has 803. So could you proceed with the budget, sir?
803 what? Million or billion?
Need Cumberland County.
You
Okay,
said you said billion or million.
million of the 4 billion.
So almost a fourth.
Yeah, I'm just,
I
you
know,
would
but it's a start,
number.
Floyd. It's a start.
Okay,
So, so for
you know,
workforce development, he wants to make an investment in apprenticeship programs, offer free community colleges for students pursuing credentials in high demand industries, support individuals re entering the workforce post incarceration. Support for families. He wants to expand access to high quality child care. He wants to increase compensation for early childhood educators. Implement, yeah, because they don't make nearly enough money, which is why we pulled my grandson out of daycare because I'm going to need the people that's working in these daycares to make more money so that we can get a different caliber of people working in these daycares. Implement targeted tax cuts for middle class families because it's few and far between that you're going to find somebody in there because they really want to be, because the pay rate is just not. Invest in affordable housing initiatives. So if he, again, if he can do that, that'd be great. Public safety and health, he wants to provide raises for state law enforcement officers, especially correction officers and youth counselors. That would help us out because we have a huge deficit in our jail right now in terms of vacancies. He wants to enhance efforts to combat the distribution of fentanyl. Is it fentanyl or fentanyl?
that depends who you talk to, Tish.
Okay, okay. He wants to allocate funds for body cameras to ensure transparency, but I don't hear him advocating for the release of the footage. He wants to promote affordable health care and support rural clinics. And lastly, for fiscal measurements, he proposes to freeze current individual and corporate tax rates, to maintain revenue streams, and to establish an impact center to improve state program efficiency and effectiveness. What are your thoughts, Mr. Floyd?
It's a good public document. It's
Do
a
you think
very
he'll be able to move any of that forward?
some of it. I think his budget for the first year is 33.6 billion, and the second year is 34.3 billion. And you had to look at the General Assembly and what they want to keep in their rainy day fund. As part of that, he wants to release more money to Western North Carolina, and you had to have a rainy day fund in order to do that. But the Office of Budget and Management have indicated a negative growth, a negative growth. So you have to look at whether or not the General Assembly is going to, like I said, it's a good public document, and the General Assembly want to maintain that $500 million for scholarships, for vouchers. So it's a good public document. But as you know, they're not going to agree with the governor's budget. The House and Senate not going to agree with each other budget. So
Because the
it's a good
politics of it all, it's going to
it's a
just
good
become very political.
it's a good public document. But I do believe, given the state of the state, when that the Speaker of the House indicated that he is willing to work with the Stein administration, that's something that we need to look at, how much cooperation is uh, is going to be there. But I don't think for is the voucher program that they are not going to bend on that. And for the
Listen, baby,
court,
because the people have spoken and they said, give us our vouchers.
so
Yeah.
so that's there. But reducing, but looking at offsetting the corporate taxes to provide that 0.5% income tax drop every year. That's something that's possible to be considered. But and then again, see, he wants to look at something, and that is, I think, sometime in August, I believe it is, that they have a tax-free day for the parents
To
to
go back to school shopping.
go back to shopping, and the government saying that, hey, that's some taxes that we don't want to give away.
Yeah. I can
So
remember that being a thing, though. Didn't we used to do
good.
that?
Yeah, it was good, but at the same time, the government lost money from what they
Absolutely.
would have collected in sale tax. So you have to, so you're going to have to offset that some kind of way. And what the state government provide services, and you had to be creative about how you're going to provide these services. I forgot what the dollar value was that they lost on that day. So when you really look at it, anything
But
like
don't look at it. Listen, 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 House and Senate. Don't look at it as a loss to you. Look at it as a gain for your constituency.
but they still must provide services. Although, like what you said, you're right. But we also got raises here that you want to look at. You want to look at something. You want to bring the teacher's salary up to the highest in the southeast. When you want to look at probation officers, you want to give teacher raises. You want to do bonuses. All that comes from
Cost money.
it costs money. And when you look at North Carolina is one of the top four states in which companies and organizations and individuals are moving to. So you had to provide that service, the
But Mr.
infrastructure.
Floyd, it means that we need to really be leveraging these corporate tax dollars. I like what Commissioner Devier said last week when he mentioned that instead of them trying to look at increasing the revenue for the county through increasing the tax rate on the citizens, that he would rather they look at it from the perspective of how can they increase the commercial tax rate so that they're not looking at always hitting the citizen base. And I think that that's something that we all need to really understand is very impactful, which is why we should be courting business and why every time something comes to the table, we shouldn't write it off. Now, we do need to be smart because when we look at these industries that are damaging for our environment, there's a higher cost down the road for something like that. But most certainly, I think that there's something to trying to drive industry into our area. And one of the things that we forgot to mention was that the
Um,
yes, talk a little bit about that, Mr. Floyd. While we're talking
you,
about industry, we're getting ready to see 72 new jobs coming to our community. What are we looking at?
we're looking at a payroll of somewhere about $3.5 million, and about a salary a little bit over the average, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of about $4,700, $47,000, a year. So that's what changes the economic growth in our community. We can grow our community, but you must grow the community not based on individual property taxes. You have to grow that based on corporate taxes. Those are
Hmm.
the one. When you look at Wake County, you look at Durham, you look at Charlotte, you look at Greensboro, they rely heavily upon corporate taxes because they have the infrastructure in order to do that. So that's what we're talking about, is getting industry. And a lot of time people don't want to provide incentives for corporation to locate in your community. And the question of it is, Madam Waddell, I can go anywhere and produce a product.
Yeah.
You're not going to give me any incentive. I'm going where I can get me some incentive because I have some corporate boards that want to receive some money at the end of the whenever they're in physical year end.
Hmm.
So you look at you look at that, and that, I mean, the incentive is based on, in many instances, is based on your performance. If you don't meet whatever that target goals are. So when you talk with the community, your target goal is always under projected.
Hmm.
So if I say 75 jobs, really, I know that I can create 80 jobs, but I can reach the 75 much quicker. So I would use the 75 instead of the 80. So when I reach the 80, then you would say, my, he
He
overperformed.
did a great job. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because and that's one of the key tenets of business is to overperform and underdeliver. Under promise and over deliver. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Under promise. I'm gonna have this to you by Saturday. Over deliver. Get it to him by Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, so that's what corporate. But you got to have. So when you look at it, and we talking about the money that we take away from corporate America, we should put it in education. Now, when you look at corporate America is coming where they can get the best tax for their base. That's what they're looking at. So why should I build a $140 million industry and pay you 12% taxes
Right.
when I can go to another state and build the same and pay 2% taxes?
Right.
Now, that's one thing. But when you look at corporate America, they're not coming in. I mean, they're bringing in those 6 and 7 figure numbers, CEOs
Hmm.
and top management. So they're bringing in jobs that is going to help that community grow. And not only that, when you look at I think it's the battery plant up by Greensboro, up that way, you're going to have industry that supply that battery company, so that they don't have a heavy shipping cost. They're going to try to locate as close as they can to that industry. So
Hmm.
everything grows, around it. But we got to get that infrastructure. See, we don't have water, we don't have sewer. And that's what the chairman mentioned to you the other day, that we're talking about a $4 billion price tag.
Yeah. Mr. Floyd, who's our guest next week?
Our guest next week is that the chair of the minority leader for the the chair for the North Carolina House, Representative Robert Rees, which is the
Yes.
chair of the House Democrat Caucus, which is he's a lawyer, very sharp, and astute politician. And
Yes.
he will tell you, like it or not, I know you don't like it. When he first came to the General Assembly, I trained him.
um,
He didn't take up a lot of mine, but I trained him as it relates to understand politics in the General Assembly
yeah.
and the rules in which we operate and govern ourselves, and read and look at who are on the bills before you cast or sign on to those bills, and the likelihood of whether or not that bill will have the light of day.
So I'm looking forward to him being on next week so that we can chat with him. What you want to leave our people with, Mr. Floyd?
See, this is my new thing that I'm going to say. Remember, if the dog carried the bone, so would he do what, Madam Waddell?
Take one back. Because a gossip
So
is a gossip is a gossip.
yeah, so beware of the person that bring you the news. He too or she too will talk about you. And
Absolutely.
remember, Madam Waddell, that person wear many hats and garments.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, what I'd like to leave our people with, this is something that really touched my heart. I received a message yesterday with an update that many of you are familiar with Councilwoman Courtney Banks McLaughlin. You know about the tragedy that struck her family a few years ago, where her daughter lost her life very tragically, and this would have been her daughter's senior year in high school. She'd be graduating this year. And a memorial fund has been set up in honor of her daughter, Coriana Treasure Young, through Cumberland Community Foundation to support the students in the JROTC program at 71st High School. I am so excited to announce this to you all. I'm asking you for your support of this initiative. I'm going to post a link on our Facebook page where you can make a donation. Our goal is to be able to help her to fully fund this memorial fund with a minimum of at least $10,000 prior to what would have been her daughter's graduation, so that so that Coriana Treasure Young's legacy can continue to live on, and people will remember the light that she was through the gift of this foundation and your giving. So again, um, it's never something that you want to be able to do, because to do this means that you have to acknowledge that there are parents and siblings and family that are suffering the loss of a loved one. Yet it is definitely something that I'm honored to be able to give to you guys as an opportunity, because it means that we get to bear a portion of their grief and we get to help them to honor their daughter. So no donation is too small. Remember, President Barack Obama was elected by people giving $5 at a time. So, with your assistance, we can definitely fund this. You will receive a tax deductible donation because it is set up through Cumberland Community Foundation. You are not giving directly to the family. You are not giving directly to the school. You're giving into a fund that will accumulate interest and continue to provide a donation for years and years and years to come. So you give once, you make an impact for years to come. So again, I'll post that information. You can likely find that information on some different social media sites if you kind of go in and Google, but for sure you'll see it on our page, Mr. Floyd. And I just want to say that the Bible says to laugh with those who laugh and mourn with those who mourn. So, and we're also told that that we're to share in these common experiences. In Ecclesiastes, we're reminded that two together is stronger than you standing by yourself. So I want to remind you guys to stop being these islands and trying to be on your own. Build you community. Community matters. Community is going to matter more and more as we move forward. So do not try and establish this ideology that you can do it all by yourself, because you cannot. None of us are self-made. None of us can exist apart from the influence and the effect of others. We need each other. So that's really all I have. I do love you all, Mr. Floyd. You have any final words aside from that dog that'll carry a bone a take one?
I shall be part of the giving team.
I appreciate you, sir. I have done my giving also. And I would like for you guys to like, share, subscribe, and follow. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and we'll catch you on the next episode.